Martin's champagne glass slipped from his trembling fingers, shattering against the marble floor of the grand ballroom. 300 pairs of eyes turned toward him as the massive screen above the captain's podium displayed his wife's face. Calm, elegant, and utterly devastating. "Good evening, everyone." Tina's voice filled the room through crystal-clear speakers. "I'm Tina Williams, owner of Williams Maritime Lines. I hope you're enjoying the Tina, named after me by my late father." Michelle's fingers tightened around Martin's arm, her scarlet nails digging into his jacket. The whispers started immediately, rippling through the crowd like wildfire. "I'm reviewing tonight's passenger manifest," Tina continued, her smile never wavering. "And I've noticed two very special guests aboard my ship, my husband Martin and his companion Michelle." The room fell into absolute silence. "Martin, darling," Tina's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow filled every corner of the ballroom. "How is the owner's suite? The one I was saving for our 10th anniversary next month. Before we continue, let me ask you something quietly. Where are you listening from right now? And what time is it in your part of the world? Some of us are hearing this story under the hot afternoon sun. Some in the calm of the night, when thoughts are heavy and hearts are open. Different places, one story, one lesson. If stories like this speak to your heart, please subscribe to the channel. Your like helps this story reach another soul. Your comment tells me you understand the lesson. And when you share, you may be saving someone from the same mistake. Now let us continue." Martin Williams had always struggled with one particular truth. He was the man who married up. 10 years ago, when he'd met Tina at a corporate banking event in Lagos, she'd been breathtaking, intelligent, gracious, and completely unaware of how her presence commanded every room she entered. She was the only daughter of Chief Emmanuel Williams, owner of the largest private shipping company in West Africa. Martin had been a mid-level account manager with ambition but little else. Their courtship had been genuine, or so he'd convinced himself. Tina never flaunted her wealth, never made him feel small. But her family did. Every Sunday dinner at the Williams estate in Ikoyi reminded Martin of what he wasn't: connected, established, born into privilege. "Your husband is lucky to have married into such a family," Tina's uncle had said at their wedding reception, loud enough for half the guests to hear. "Not every man gets a shortcut to success." The comment had burned itself into Martin's soul. For 8 years, Martin had worked at Williams Maritime Lines, promoted steadily through the ranks. But the whispers followed him through every boardroom, every office corridor. "He's only here because of his wife." Chief Williams took pity on him. Without Tina, he'd still be shuffling papers at some bank. Then Michelle walked into his life. She was 26, fresh from business school, hired as a sales associate in the Coastal Operations Division. Michelle had looked at Martin like he was someone important, not because of his wife but because of himself. She laughed at his jokes, sought his advice, and called him Mr. Williams, with a respect he rarely felt at home anymore. "You're so different from what I expected," Michelle had said during a late work evening 3 months ago. "Everyone talks about you like you're just Tina's husband. But you're brilliant. You built half these client relationships yourself." The affair began 2 weeks later. Martin told himself it wasn't about the sex, though Michelle's youth and eagerness certainly fed his wounded ego. It was about being seen, being valued for himself. Michelle didn't know about the family dinners where Tina's brothers discussed company decisions without asking Martin's opinion. She didn't see the way Tina's father still introduced Martin as "my daughter's husband," rather than "our executive director." Michelle saw Martin the way he wanted to be seen. Powerful, desirable, worthy. "My wife doesn't understand me anymore," Martin had whispered to Michelle one evening in a hotel room in Victoria Island. It was the oldest lie in the world, and he'd told it without shame. "We've grown apart. She's so focused on the business, on her family's legacy. I'm just there." Michelle had believed him. Why wouldn't she? Martin was careful, strategic. He never mentioned Tina's warmth, her efforts to include him in company decisions, or the way she still held his hand during family gatherings despite her relatives' coldness. 2 months into the affair, Martin had made a decision. He needed to feel like more than Tina's husband, more than Chief Williams' son-in-law. He needed to feel powerful. "Let's go away together," he told Michelle. "Somewhere luxurious. Somewhere we can just be ourselves." Michelle's eyes had lit up. Like a real couple? Like a real couple, Martin had confirmed. He'd scrolled through luxury cruise packages on his laptop that night, sitting in his home office while Tina slept upstairs in their bedroom, when he found the perfect option. A 5-day West African coastal cruise with stops in Cape Town and Zanzibar. He'd booked it immediately. The owner's suite. 2 tickets. Premium everything. Martin had used the company credit card, the one Tina had given him years ago with unlimited access. He'd never bothered to check which subsidiary the cruise line belonged to. Why would he? There were dozens of companies in the Williams family portfolio. The charge appeared simply as Williams Maritime Luxury Services. Martin had assumed it was a competitor or a partner company. He'd never imagined it was Tina's own fleet. I have to go to Cape Town for a regional conference, Martin announced over breakfast 3 weeks before the cruise. He kept his voice casual, spreading jam on his toast without meeting Tina's eyes. For maybe 5 days. It's the annual Maritime Security Summit. Tina looked up from her tablet, where she'd been reviewing shipping manifests. Which conference? I don't remember seeing it on the company calendar. It's external, Martin said quickly. Industry-wide. Not just our company. David from operations mentioned it last month. Tina nodded slowly, her expression unreadable. When do you leave? March 15th. That's the week of our anniversary, Tina said softly. Martin felt a flicker of guilt, but crushed it immediately. I know, sweetheart. I'm sorry, but this is important for my career development. You understand. My career, he'd said. Not our company. Not the family business. The distinction hung in the air between them. Tina reached across the table and squeezed his hand. Of course I understand. We can celebrate when you get back. That afternoon, while Martin was in meetings, Tina's personal assistant brought her the monthly credit card statements. Tina had stopped reviewing them years ago. She trusted Martin completely, and the company finances were managed by a separate team. But something had nagged at her since breakfast. Martin had seemed nervous, distant, so she'd asked for the statements. The charge was right there on page 3, Williams Maritime Luxury Services. Owner's suite package, 2 passengers, $15,000. Tina stared at the line for a full minute. 2 passengers. She picked up her phone and called the direct line to Captain Okonkwo, the veteran sailor who'd commanded her flagship vessel, the Tina, for the past 6 years. Captain, this is Mrs. Williams. I need you to pull up a booking for me. Passenger name, Martin Williams. Departure March 15th. There was typing on the other end, then a pause. Yes, ma'am. I have it here. Owner's suite, 5-day coastal package. 2 passengers registered. Martin Williams and... Another pause. Michelle Adeyemi. Tina's heart cracked, but her voice remained steady. Thank you, Captain. I need you to do something for me. She explained her plan in detail. Captain Okonkwo listened without interruption, and when she finished he said quietly, Ma'am, are you certain? This will be... public. He made it public when he booked my suite for his mistress, Tina replied. I'm just providing the stage he chose. That evening, Tina searched the company directory for Michelle Adeyemi. The photo showed a young woman with expensive hair extensions and a confident smile. Sales associate, coastal operations. Recently hired. Tina had approved the hire herself 6 months ago. The betrayal burned deeper. For 2 weeks Tina said nothing. She watched Martin pack for his conference, helped him choose ties, kissed him goodbye at the door. She played the role of the unsuspecting wife perfectly, because she needed Martin to board that ship believing he'd won. Meanwhile, Martin's best friend David had started to suspect something was wrong. David had worked with Martin for 7 years, long before Michelle arrived. He'd noticed the lingering looks, the private lunch meetings, the way Martin's phone was always face down on his desk. 3 days before the cruise, David had confronted Martin in the parking garage. Man, what are you doing? David asked, his voice low and urgent. People are talking. Michelle keeps showing your photo to the girls in accounting. She's saying you're taking her somewhere special. Martin's face had flushed. It's none of your business, David. You're my friend, and you're destroying your life. David grabbed Martin's arm. Tina is a good woman. She loves you. Her family gave you everything. Her family gave me nothing. Martin jerked away, his voice rising. They gave me a pity job and a lifetime of condescension. You don't know what it's like, David. Every single day. Being reminded that I'm just the guy who married the boss's daughter. So your solution is to humiliate her? To throw away a decade of marriage for some girl half your age? You're just jealous, Martin spat. Jealous that I have options, that someone actually sees me as more than Tina's accessory. David stared at him, disappointment etched across his face. You're going to regret this, Martin. And when you do, don't come looking for sympathy. He'd walked away, and Martin had convinced himself David was wrong. On March 14th, the night before the cruise, Tina had dinner with her father at the family estate. Chief Williams was 82 now. His hands shaky but his mind still sharp. You're troubled, my daughter, he said, studying her face across the dining table. What's wrong? Tina had debated telling him but decided against it. This was her marriage, her battle. Just work stress, Daddy. The new shipping contracts are complex. But Chief Williams hadn't built an empire by missing subtlety. If that husband of yours is causing you pain, you tell me. I don't care what his title is in this company. I can handle it, Tina said quietly. Her father reached across and took her hand. You're my daughter. You're a Williams. Don't ever let anyone make you forget your worth. The next morning, March 15th, Martin and Michelle boarded the Tina at Lagosport with 298 other passengers. They were giddy, holding hands openly now that they were away from the office. Michelle gasped when she saw the owner's suite. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Atlantic, a king-sized bed with Egyptian cotton sheets, a private balcony with a jacuzzi. This is incredible, she squealed, throwing herself into Martin's arms. You really know how to treat a woman. Martin grinned, pushing away the tiny voice in his head that whispered Tina's name. Only the best for you. What neither of them knew was that Tina had boarded a Williams Maritime corporate helicopter that same morning, flying to a secure facility in Abuja where she could access the ship's communication systems remotely. The trap had been set. Now she just had to spring it. Day 3 of the cruise arrived with perfect weather. Clear skies, calm seas, and a guest list buzzing with excitement for the captain's gala dinner. Martin had spent the previous 2 days in blissful denial. He and Michelle had lounged by the pool, explored the ship's premium amenities, and made love in the owner's suite without a shred of guilt. Here, hundreds of miles from Lagos, from Tina, from his carefully constructed lies, Martin felt free. Everyone's talking about tonight's dinner, Michelle said that afternoon, trying on the emerald green dress Martin had bought her at the ship's boutique. Apparently the owner does a special toast every cruise. It's supposed to be this huge tradition. Rich people love their traditions, Martin said dismissively, though he felt a small flutter of unease. He still hadn't checked which company operated the cruise line. The name Williams Maritime was so common in the industry that he'd assumed it was just coincidence. At 7 o'clock, guests began filing into the grand ballroom. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light across tables draped in white linen. A live band played soft jazz while waiters circulated with champagne. Martin and Michelle were seated at table 7, near the center of the room. Michelle kept squeezing his hand under the table, her eyes bright with excitement. This is like a fairy tale, she whispered. Martin smiled, but the unease was growing. Something felt off, though he couldn't identify what. At 7:30, Captain Okonkwo took the podium. He was a dignified man in his 60s, his uniform crisp and decorated with service medals. The room quieted as he tapped the microphone. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 3rd evening of our voyage aboard the Tina. His voice was warm, commanding. As is our tradition, tonight we honor the woman who made this journey possible. The owner of Williams Maritime Lines and this magnificent vessel. Martin's heart stopped. Williams Maritime Lines. Not a competitor. Not a partner company. Tina's company. This year, Captain Okonkwo continued, Mrs. Williams is unable to join us in person due to pressing business matters. However, she has arranged to address you all via live broadcast from our corporate headquarters. The lights dimmed. A massive screen descended from the ceiling behind the captain's podium. Michelle leaned closer to Martin. That's so modern. I love. Her voice died as the screen flickered to life. Tina appeared, seated in her office at Williams Maritime headquarters. She wore a navy blue suit, her hair pulled back elegantly, her makeup flawless. Behind her, the company logo gleamed on the wall. Williams Maritime Lines, 3 generations of excellence. The room erupted in polite applause. Martin couldn't breathe. His champagne glass slipped from his numb fingers and exploded against the floor. The sound echoed through the ballroom. Heads turned. Michelle's grip on his arm went from affectionate to desperate. "Good evening, everyone." Tina's voice filled the room, smooth and controlled. "I'm Tina Williams, owner and CEO of Williams Maritime Lines. I hope you're all enjoying your time aboard the Tina, which was named after me by my late father when the ship launched 8 years ago." She paused, her smile warm and gracious. To anyone who didn't know her, she looked like a successful businesswoman addressing valued customers. But Martin saw the pain beneath the composure. He saw it in the tightness around her eyes, the way her hands were clasped a little too firmly on the desk. "I always review our passenger manifests personally," Tina continued, "because I believe in knowing who entrusts their precious vacation time to our company. Tonight, I noticed 2 very special names on our list." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "My husband, Martin Williams," Tina said, her eyes seeming to look directly through the screen at him, "and his companion, Miss Michelle Adeyemi." The whispers started immediately, low, shocked murmurs rippling through the crowd like a wave. Michelle's face had gone pale. "Martin, what is she?" "Martin, darling." Tina's voice cut through the noise and the room fell silent again. "I do hope you're enjoying the owner's suite. You know, the one with the custom Italian furniture I selected myself? The one I specifically reserved for our 10th wedding anniversary celebration next month." Someone gasped. A woman at table 3 covered her mouth with her hand. Martin tried to stand, but his legs wouldn't cooperate. He was frozen, pinned to his chair by 300 stares and his wife's calm, devastating voice. "I also wanted to thank Miss Adeyemi," Tina continued, her tone never shifting from professional courtesy, "for keeping my husband company during what he told me was a mandatory maritime security conference in Cape Town. I'm sure the jacuzzi in the suite's private balcony has been very educational." Michelle made a small wounded sound. Her hand flew from Martin's arm like she'd been burned. "You told me you were divorced," she hissed, her voice breaking. "You said." "Of course," Tina went on. "I understand that sometimes people make mistakes. They confuse luxury with love, and access with achievement. They forget that character isn't built by credit card limits, but by the choices we make when we think no one is watching." Tina leaned forward slightly and now Martin could see it. The tears she was holding back, the tremor in her jaw, the cost of this public composure. "Captain Okonkwo," Tina said, shifting her gaze, "please ensure that Mr. Williams and Miss Adeyemi are moved to separate standard cabins for the remainder of the voyage. The owner's suite will remain locked. Additionally, I'm revoking Mr. Williams' company credit privileges effective immediately." The captain nodded crisply. "Yes, ma'am." Tina's eyes returned to the camera, to the room, to Martin. "To all our other guests, please accept my sincere apologies for this disruption. Your remaining voyage is complimentary, courtesy of Williams Maritime Lines. Enjoy the rest of your evening." The screen went black. For 3 full seconds nobody moved. Then the ballroom erupted. Whispers became conversations. Phones appeared as guests began texting, photographing, recording. The woman at table 3 was openly crying. Whether from sympathy or scandal, Martin couldn't tell. 2 security officers appeared at table 7. "Mr. Williams, Miss Adeyemi," the taller one said quietly, "please come with us." Michelle was already standing, tears streaming down her face. "You bastard," she choked out, her voice thick with humiliation and rage. "You said you were divorced. You said she didn't care about you anymore. You lied to me." "Michelle, please." Martin reached for her, but she slapped his hand away. "Don't touch me. Everyone here thinks that I'm some homewrecker. Do you know what you've done to me?" She grabbed her purse and stormed toward the exit, sobbing openly now. The security officer followed her, leaving Martin with his colleague and 300 witnesses to his shame. "Sir," the remaining officer said, his tone professional but cold, "your belongings have already been moved to cabin 247. Lower deck. You'll remain there until we dock in Zanzibar tomorrow afternoon." Martin finally found his voice. I need to speak to my wife. I need to call her. Mrs. Williams has instructed us that you are not to contact her directly. All communication will go through the ship's administration office. The officer gestured toward the exit. Martin had no choice but to follow, walking through a ballroom full of stares, whispers, and the unmistakable weight of collective judgment. As he passed table 12, an elderly woman muttered to her husband, loud enough for Martin to hear. That's what happens when a man forgets his blessings. The ballroom doors closed behind him, muffling the explosion of gossip he'd left in his wake. Martin had boarded this ship feeling powerful, desired, free. Now he was a prisoner in a floating monument to his own betrayal, and the voyage had 2 more days to go. Cabin 247 was a nightmare of irony. It wasn't the worst accommodation on the ship. There was a narrow bed, a tiny bathroom, a porthole window barely large enough to see the ocean. But after 3 days in the owner's suite, the downgrade was suffocating. Martin sat on the edge of the bed, his head in his hands, listening to the muffled sounds of the party continuing above him. The gala dinner was still going. People were still eating, drinking, dancing. Life was moving forward while his hat imploded. His phone buzzed. Text messages flooded in. First from Michelle's number. Michelle, I can't believe you did this to me. Everyone knows. Everyone. I'm locked in my cabin and people are taking pictures of my door. You destroyed my reputation. I hope you're happy. Michelle. Don't ever contact me again. You're disgusting. Then from David. David, just heard what happened. What the hell were you thinking, man? Tina deserved better than this. Martin's hand shook as he typed a response to Michelle. I'm sorry. I never meant for this to happen. Please let me explain. The message bounced back. Message failed to deliver. You have been blocked. He tried calling Tina. The line rang once, then went to voicemail. Her voice, calm, professional, the recording she'd made years ago, felt like a knife in his chest. You've reached Tina Williams. Please leave a message. Tina, please, Martin's voice cracked. Please pick up. I know I messed up. I know this looks bad, but if you just let me explain. He stopped. What could he possibly explain? That he was lonely? That he felt emasculated by her family? That Michelle had made him feel important? Every excuse sounded pathetic in his own ears. Martin ended the call without finishing the message. At midnight, there was a knock on his door. Martin's heart leaped. Maybe Tina had flown to meet the ship at the next port. Maybe she was here to talk, to scream at him, to give him a chance. He opened the door to find 3 men in expensive suits. He recognized them immediately. Tina's father, Chief Emmanuel Williams, and her 2 older brothers, Chike and Emeka. They must have boarded via helicopter at the Cotonou port stop that evening. Martin's mouth went dry. Chief Williams, I can explain. Step aside, Chief Williams said, his voice like granite. The 4 men entered the tiny cabin. Chike closed the door behind them. The space suddenly felt impossibly small. Chief Williams studied Martin with the same expression he used to evaluate failed business proposals. Cold, analytical, disappointed. 10 years ago, the old man began. My daughter came to me and said she wanted to marry you. I said no. Do you know why? Martin shook his head, unable to speak. Because I saw what you were. A man with ambition but no character. A man who wanted success but wasn't willing to build it himself. But my Tina, she loved you. She begged me to give you a chance. So I did. Chief Williams stepped closer. Despite his age, his presence was overwhelming. I gave you a position in my company. I gave you my name's reputation. I welcomed you into my family. And my daughter, my precious daughter, gave you her heart, her trust, her loyalty. Sir, I made a mistake. A mistake is forgetting an appointment, Emeka interrupted, his voice hard. A mistake is a wrong turn on the highway. What you did was a choice. You chose to disrespect our sister. You chose to humiliate her in front of the world. Chike added. Do you know what Tina was doing the week before you boarded this ship? She was planning your anniversary party. She'd commissioned a custom watch for you. 18-karat gold, engraved with your wedding date. She'd arranged a renewal of vows ceremony. She was celebrating you, Martin, while you were booking suites for your side piece. The shame was suffocating. Martin wanted to disappear. to sink through the floor into the ocean below. I love her, Martin whispered. I know I messed up, but I love her. Chief William's laugh was bitter and sharp. Love? You don't know the meaning of the word. Love is sacrifice. Love is loyalty. Love is honoring your commitments even when they're difficult. What you felt was convenience, comfort, entitlement. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. My daughter has already filed for divorce. The papers will be waiting for you when we dock tomorrow. Your employment with Williams Maritime Lines is terminated effective immediately. The house you live in, our family home, will be vacated within 30 days. The car you drive belongs to the company. You will return it. Martin's legs gave out. He collapsed onto the bed. Please, Chief Williams. Please don't do this. Give me a chance to make this right. You had 10 years of chances, Chief Williams said quietly. My daughter gave you everything and you gave her betrayal. There is nothing left to discuss. The three men left, closing the door behind them with a soft click that sounded like a vault ceiling shut. Martin sat alone in the dark cabin, the walls closing in. His phone rang. Unknown number. He answered desperately. Hello. Martin. It was his mother's voice, tight with disappointment and pain. Mom, thank God. I need to talk to someone who. I'm calling to tell you that I'm ashamed of you. Martin's breath caught. Tina called me this afternoon, his mother continued. She told me what you did. She didn't have to call me, Martin. She could have just let me find out from gossip. But she respected me enough to tell me herself, even after what you put her through. Mom, please. I raised you better than this. Your father and I taught you about honor, about treating women with respect. And you threw it all away for what? A younger woman who made you feel important? You already were important, Martin. You had a wife who loved you, a family who accepted you, a life most men would kill for. Her voice broke. I can't defend you. I won't. When you get back to Lagos, don't call me. Not until you've figured out how to be the man I thought I raised. The line went dead. Martin dropped the phone and buried his face in his hands. The sobs came violently, tearing through his chest like physical pain. Everything was gone. His marriage, his job, his reputation, his family's respect. And for what? For 3 months of ego-stroking from a girl who now hated him. For the illusion of power. For a fantasy that had evaporated the moment Tina's face appeared on that screen. Outside his porthole window, the ocean stretched endless and indifferent. Tomorrow they would dock in Zanzibar. The voyage would end. But Martin's real journey into consequences was just beginning. The ship docked in Zanzibar at 2 in the afternoon. Martin hadn't slept. He'd spent the night pacing his cabin, listening to the whispers and laughter from passengers in the corridor. Someone had leaked photos from the gala dinner to social media. By morning, the story had gone viral across West African social media. #OwnerSuite Saga was trending in Nigeria, Ghana, and Kenya. The headlines were brutal. Husband takes mistress on wife's luxury cruise. Gets exposed at dinner. CEO Tina Williams serves ice-cold justice to cheating husband. Man uses wife's credit card to romance side chick on wife's own ship. When Martin emerged from his cabin to disembark, passengers literally stepped aside to let him pass, creating a corridor of judgment. Some whispered. Others openly stared. One woman shook her head sadly and said to her companion, "Men never appreciate what they have until it's gone." Michelle was nowhere to be seen. She'd apparently disembarked at the earliest opportunity via a staff-only exit, her face hidden behind sunglasses and a scarf. At the gangway, a young man in a suit waited with a leather envelope. "Martin Williams?" he asked professionally. "Yes. You've been served." He handed Martin the envelope and walked away. Inside were divorce papers, already filed with the Lagos High Court. Tina's signature was at the bottom, elegant and final. A yellow sticky note was attached to the first page in her handwriting. "You signed a prenuptial agreement on our wedding day. Perhaps you should have read it." Martin's knees buckled. He stumbled to a bench at the port terminal and ripped through the documents. The prenup was devastating in its clarity. In the event of infidelity, the unfaithful spouse forfeited all claims to marital property, shared assets, and spousal support. Tina kept everything: the house in Ikoyi, the vacation property in Calabar, the cars, the investments, even the joint savings account. Martin would leave the marriage with exactly what he'd brought into it. Nothing. His phone buzzed with a calendar notification. Company property return deadline, March 20th, 5 p.m. 3 days. Martin flew back to Lagos that evening on a commercial flight, wedged into a middle seat in economy. The man next to him was scrolling through Twitter, laughing at #OwnerSuiteSaga memes. One showed a photoshopped image of Martin with the caption, "When you try to upgrade but you were already first class." The man noticed Martin staring and did a double take. Recognition flickered across his face. He immediately pocketed his phone and pretended to sleep for the rest of the flight. Back in Lagos, reality hit like a sledgehammer. Martin's key no longer worked in the Ikoyi house. The locks had been changed. His belongings, clothes, shoes, personal items, were packed in boxes on the front porch with a security guard watching over them. He drove the company Mercedes to Williams Maritime headquarters for the last time. The receptionist wouldn't meet his eyes as she directed him to HR. The HR manager was curt. "Your termination is effective immediately. Cause: violation of company ethics policy and misuse of company resources. You're ineligible for severance. Please surrender your ID, access cards, and company phone." Martin handed everything over in silence. As he walked through the lobby for the last time, he passed the massive portrait of Chief Williams that hung near the elevators. The old man's painted eyes seemed to follow him, heavy with disappointment. Outside, David was waiting by the parking structure. "I heard you were coming in today," David said. "I wanted to. I don't know. Make sure you were okay." "I'm not okay," Martin said flatly. "I'm homeless, jobless, and my face is on every gossip blog in West Africa." David nodded slowly. "I'm sorry, man. I really am. But I warned you." "I know." There was a long pause. David seemed to struggle with something, then finally said, "Tina asked me to give you this." He handed Martin a small box. Inside was the custom Rolex Tina had commissioned for their anniversary. The back was engraved, "To my husband, my partner, my love. 10 years of forever. Tina." Martin's vision blurred with tears. "She said she wants you to keep it," David said quietly. "So you'll remember what you destroyed every time you check the time." David walked away, back into the building, leaving Martin alone in the parking lot with a watch he didn't deserve. Over the following weeks, Martin's fall from grace became complete. He moved into a one-bedroom flat in Surulere, a drastic downgrade from the Ikoyi mansion. His job applications were all rejected. Word had spread through Lagos-type professional community. No company wanted to hire that guy from the cruise scandal. Michelle had posted a tearful video on Instagram, claiming Martin had manipulated her, lied to her, ruined her reputation. She became a minor social media celebrity, the innocent victim of a married man's deception. She'd already moved on, posting photos with a new boyfriend by week 3. Meanwhile, Tina was thriving. Martin saw her everywhere, on billboards advertising Williams Maritime's expansion into East African ports, in business magazines announcing new partnerships, at charity events he followed online. She'd started a foundation called Second Chapter Initiative, supporting women recovering from divorce and betrayal. The organization provided counseling, job training, and legal support. Tina's first press conference had been covered by every major Nigerian news outlet. "No woman should have to lose herself because a man failed to see her value," Tina had said, poised and powerful. "We will rebuild, and we will rise stronger." The photo from that conference showed Tina surrounded by other women, all of them smiling, all of them radiating the kind of strength that came from surviving and choosing to help others survive too. Martin had stared at that photo for hours, tears streaming down his face. 3 months after the cruise, Martin found work as a junior sales associate at a small import-export company. The pay was a fraction of what he'd earned at Williams Maritime. His manager was younger than him, less experienced, less educated. But Martin had no leverage, no options, no pride left to protect. One Saturday afternoon, Martin was walking through Victoria Island when he saw them, Tina and her family, at a charity event for her foundation. There was a red carpet, cameras, supporters cheering. Tina wore a stunning gold dress. She was laughing with her father, who looked healthier and happier than Martin had seen him in years. Chike and Emeka stood nearby, protective and proud. Martin stayed across the street, hidden behind a bus stop, watching the life he'd lost. A journalist asked Tina how she'd found the strength to move forward. "I learned that my worth was never dependent on someone else's ability to recognize it," Tina said, her voice clear and certain. "I am enough with or without a partner. And any relationship I build going forward will be with someone who understands that from day one." The crowd applauded. Martin watched until the event ended, until Tina disappeared into a car with her family, until the street was empty again. Then he walked home to his tiny flat, past the billboards with Tina's face, past the Williams Maritime offices where he'd once had an office with his name on the door. He stopped at a street vendor and bought fried plantain for dinner. The vendor recognized him. "Oga, you be that man from the ship video, abi?" Martin nodded, too tired to lie. The vendor shook his head sympathetically. "My brother nawa for you that your wife she fine well. Rich beautiful good woman. Wetin you day find outside?" "I don't know," Martin whispered. "Some lessons," the vendor said, handing him his food. "Not only suffering fit teach. You go learn 'em now." Martin returned to his flat and sat in the dark, eating cold plantain, wearing the Rolex that reminded him with every tick of everything he'd thrown away. He thought about Michelle, who'd moved on without a backward glance. He thought about his mother, who still wouldn't take his calls. He thought about David, who'd tried to warn him. And he thought about Tina, brilliant, gracious, forgiving Tina, who'd given him 10 years of love and loyalty, and in return had received betrayal on a scale so public, so devastating, that it had become a cautionary tale. Some mistakes don't get second chances. Some consequences don't come with expiration dates. Some prices can't be paid in installments. They demand everything, all at once, and leave you with nothing but the lesson branded into your soul. Martin had wanted to feel powerful. Now he understood that real power had been loving and being loved by a woman like Tina. And he'd destroyed it for an illusion. The regret would outlast everything else, the shame, the poverty, the loneliness. Because every day, for the rest of his life, Martin would wake up knowing that he'd had everything that mattered. And he'd thrown it away with his own hands. Thank you for staying with me to the end. Comment your thoughts on the betrayal, and tell me where you are watching from. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping stories like this. What do you think happens next? Comment below.